I got some notes that I put together, generated in combination with some of my own personal journal entries from the time that I went through basic training. This is the content, the material that I wish I would have been able to find prior to going to basic training in AIT, wondering, okay, like what it's going to be like. Because I see all sorts of stuff online, and I was curious, like, okay, like, is that the way it's actually going to be? Because I know that there's several places where basic training happens, and each one is a little bit different. And I'm going to try to unpack what's specific to my experience, and then what is kind of the general basic training experience. So first, I need to clarify the three components, right? So what I did was enlisted in the National Guard, but there's active duty, National Guard, and reserves, right? Reserves and National Guard are both reserve components, but there is some differences between the two that we'll get into. So first of all, the schedule. So like active duty is like full-time. It's like you're a full-time employee. It's your job, it's your paycheck, you live on or near a base. Army, National Guard, and Reserve, that's where you get the 1 weekend a month, and then the 2 weeks or 15 days once a year. And then active duty, controlled, it's federal, and also the reserve. So those are both federal thing. The National Guard has a dual purpose. It's federal but also state, and then there's some weird nuances there. But National Guard, think state. That's where you get like all your like natural disaster things, and it has like those other missions that it does, controlled by the governor. So with active duty, you live on or near the station, versus with the National Guard, you just go to your armory or reserve center. The benefits, you get the most benefits when you're active duty. Just like how if you're a full-time employee, you get like the full-time employee benefits package because you're signing up for more, you're committing to more. With National Guard, it's like you can get all the stuff if you're on active duty orders, I think longer than 30 days, but otherwise like you get the kind of the prorated benefits. Basic training is all the same. Everyone goes to the same basic training and AIT, and then it's after graduation that you go your separate ways. So whether you're active duty, National Guard, or reserve, you're all going to get chucked into the same basic training, wherever that happens, based on your job, which we'll get to. But I'll mention the only time at basic training where they ever separated the components was like when they would be like, okay, everyone National Guard, come this way to the classroom. We have like a brief for you that you need to listen to, and so stuff like that. But for the most part, it's all the training. You do it together. You're all the same. You're all trainees in basic training. So the key points: all three components attend the same 10-week basic combat training at the same installations. A guard, a reserve recruit, and an active duty recruit go through identical training. Right. So the National Guard answers to the state governor for domestic emergencies. That's Title 32 if you want to look into that. And to the president when federalized for overseas missions. The Army Reserve is a federal-only force providing specialized support, medical, legal, logistics, civil affairs, and it has no state mission. Guard and Reserve soldiers are paid for drill weekends and annual training, not for time between drills. Active duty pay is continuous. Kind of the way that I think about it, the difference between National Guard and Reserve, this isn't a completely accurate description, but just roughly speaking, it's like the Reserves is like, okay, I need to restock a store, right? Like give me one of these, some of that. And then National Guard, sometimes it's more like, okay, give me like a whole store and like put it over here and make it like do stuff. Again, an oversimplification, and that's not even always the case, but just kind of like roughly speaking. All right. Enlisted versus officer. So I won't go too much into the officer route or track because I'm enlisted. That's what I did. That's what I know the most about. But just a brief overview because you will encounter some officers. The officers are the commissioned leaders of the Army. They plan and direct operations and are legally responsible for their soldiers. Starting at an O1, that's like a second lieutenant, and that all goes all the way up to general. Requiring a bachelor's degree at a minimum. So you either have to have one or like be really close and documented, like I'm about to get a bachelor's degree. Main commissioning paths are ROTC, that's like your college program where like they do it in exchange for scholarships, tuition, and then they commission as an officer. Or there's officer candidate school, it's more of a direct route, 12 weeks. And then there's West Point, that's the academy. And then like really like specific kind of rare instances, there's the licensed professionals like doctors and lawyers can direct commission, but that's like super nuanced. The enlisted track. Most soldiers are enlisted. They are the hands-on operators, technicians, and specialists who carry out the Army's work, the doers, right? Officers, managers, enlisted doers. The entry requirement is a high school diploma or a GED with a higher ASVAB score. The minimum AFQT score for the Army is 31, so be aiming for that. And then that's all the enlisted ranks, E1 all the way up through E9. NCO, non-commissioned officers, those are E4, so starting with your corporal, and then you have your sergeant, and then all the way up staff sergeant, sergeant first class, and those are your NCOs. They are the enlisted leaders who train and lead junior soldiers. Drill sergeants are NCOs. Enlisted recruits must choose a job, an MOS, which we'll get into, very important, during the enlistment process, and then based on the ASVAB score that you get will determine what job you're eligible for and some stuff with like the Army needs, like what the Army requires at that time. So we'll get into that. Real quick on warrant officers. They are technical experts, like subject matter experts. Think like aviation, intelligence, cyber, and other stuff. But like they have a very specific job, which is like to know everything about their specific thing. And so that's just a bit on warrant officers. They are selected from the enlisted ranks. Okay. Common Army jobs, MOS. So an MOS, that's a military occupational specialty. That is your job. So it's important to think about, because when you join the Army, you don't just join the Army. You have a job in the Army, and then like that's your thing. And once you pick it, you got to stick with it for the entire length of your contract. You can switch after you've served out your contract. So how that works, so I'll just go over some of the common ones. 11 Bravo. Infantry. That's what many think about when they think about Army. It's the infantry. They're the Army's primary ground combat soldier, closes and engages the enemy. There's 11 Charlie, indirect fire infantrymen. There's 19 Delta, cavalry scout, reconnaissance, kind of similar. There's a lot of overlap there. I won't go over all of them, but there's common support and technical jobs. 42 Alpha, human resources. That's what I signed up for. Manages personal records, pay actions, awards, and soldier administration. 68 Whiskey is a common one. That's the combat medic, so many who want to kind of go the medical route. There's 88 Mike, motor transport operator, drives and maintains wheeled vehicles to move troops and cargo. There's 91 Bravo, wheeled vehicle mechanic, 21 uniform, signal support, 31 Bravo, military police for the law enforcement, 35 Foxtrot, intelligence analyst, 17 Charlie, cyber operations specialist. Those are just some of the common ones. And then there's like series in all of those. So like, for instance, 68 Whiskey, there's a whole 68 series with all the medical things like dental, pharmacy, lab, behavioral health, and more. Choosing a job. Job availability at the time of enlistment depends on ASVAB line scores and the current Army needs. A desired MOS is not always open, which they will let you know, and they'll be like, hey, have backups, like 2 backups in case the one that you want isn't like you aren't able to get it. Look up any MOS at goarmy.com. This is a great resource just to kind of get a general idea about like what the job is and what you're signing up for. It will have the required scores, the training length, and clearance requirement. I'll get into that because each MOS you have to go to AIT for, and each AIT, depending on the MOS, varies in length. Basic training, always 10 weeks, no matter what MOS you pick. But for instance, 42 Alpha, when I did it, it was 9 weeks of AIT after my 10 weeks of basic training. If you pick one of the more high-speed ones, like the cyber ones, those can be much longer. So that's something that you might want to take into consideration. And then each one may have a slightly different clearance requirement. I think especially like the signal analyst, cyber things, those might require a higher level of security clearance, which might have additional requirements. The job determines the training pipeline after basic training, yes. So basic training, then you go to AIT. Also, AIT will likely happen at another base other than where your basic training happens. I say likely because if you're like me, Fort Jackson was where I went to basic training, but then also that's where the 42 Alpha AIT is. So most of my battle buddies who after graduating BCT shipped off and flew to their other base, I just went down the road to Fort Jackson, 42 Alpha, Human Resources, AIT. So I was there the whole time. Okay, the next section, unit structure. This is just kind of how it's broken down as far as like the Army is brigades, battalions, companies, platoons, squads. So In basic training, what you're most likely going to experience is the company. I think in some places it's a battery or a troop, but these are your people that you're with. So for instance, when I went, I was in 213th Battalion at Fort Jackson, Charlie Company. So Charlie Company, that was my squad. Those were my people. Like there were other companies in the battalion, but like they were like your neighbors. Like you could see them across the way, but like you never interacted with them. Other than like maybe there was like a drill and ceremony competition where we kind of came together, or like you might see them in passing because they coordinate like the field training exercises together, and they might be nearby. But for the most part, you do things as a company, and then that's further broken down into platoons. You have your platoon. I was in the 3rd platoon. And then the way that the chain of command, which I'm jumping ahead, but the company had 12 drill sergeants, 4 senior drill sergeants, so 1 per platoon, and then 2 drill sergeants. And for the most part, they would stay with their platoon, but just because of scheduling and the way that they configured things, they would cover down, and we might have the platoon 1 senior drill sergeant with us, doing training with us. So that was just I don't know if that's how it works everywhere or if that was just us, but that was kind of the chain of command. Got your company, your drill sergeants, and then later down the road, we actually did get into like subdividing the platoons into like squads, where like, one of the trainees would be like a squad leader. That came later down once we got into the field training exercises. MEPS and the ASVAB, the pipeline into the Army, right? So after you speak with a recruiter, which by the way, finding a recruiter is like the easiest thing ever, because like they will find you and not stop sending you text messages. So once you find a recruiter and you kind of go over like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do. I will say it's a bit different process between National Guard and active duty. There is some nuance between the 2 pipelines there, but we'll get into that. For instance, everyone goes through MEPS. MEPS is the Military Entrance Processing Station, where a civilian becomes a recruit. That is where the ASVAB is scored. My recruiter actually came to my location because I'm kind of a bit far away from everything, and I took my ASVAB locally. But yes, you got the opportunity to take the ASVAB at MEPS. The medical exam happens. It is a head-to-toe exam, and you will see. It is a Joint Department Defense facility. Okay, so everyone's there. The Navy, the Marines, Air Force, Army, it's all at MEPS, and then you just go to the one that you signed up for. What happens at first you got your medical questionnaire. So I didn't have any extra, I was a very seamless enlistment process. I didn't have too much with medical history or criminal history, so I didn't have to do too much like additional documentation. But if you do have some of that, it is a bit of a process to get that all squared away, because essentially anything outstanding. So if you have any criminal records, if you have a speeding ticket, you basically have to like show that like, okay, I got the ticket, but I paid the ticket and it's all taken care of, and here's the paperwork. Same thing with medical things. It's like, I had this, but like, here's the signed professional signature saying like I'm good to go or something. You need to have that documentation. So I hear, I'm not fully up to speed on that because I didn't have to do any of that, but from what I hear, yeah, everything in the Army, it's got to have like some sort of documentation with some authoritative signature on that. And that's just the language of the Army. That's how it works. ASVAB, taken at MEPS, if not already completed, the score determines which jobs you're open for. Okay, we went over that. Job counseling, yeah, like here's the jobs that could be good for you. Contract signing, it's actually a fingerprint at this point. You just kind of, I will say this, because also next is oath of enlistment. With the National Guard, and this is a feature of the Guard, for me, there was a long period of time, about 6 months, from the time that I took the oath of enlistment, MEPS, contract signing, 6 months went by before I actually shipped out to basic. I think from what I hear was like I was waiting for like a seat opening for like the school and stuff. But this is weird because the clock starts when you sign the contract, take that oath of enlistment for the National Guard. There's other clocks that start like when you actually get to basic, but for time of service, that starts when you raise your hand and take the oath of enlistment. A bit different for active duty, because active duty, there's not that lead time. You do everything and then they chuck you off to basic same day. So that's a unique feature of the Guard. ASVAB, there's a few different categories. It's the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery, a multi-subject test. The Army's minimum qualifying score is 31. It's out of 99. A higher score opens up more jobs. The AFQT score comes from 4 subjects: arithmetic, reasoning, mathematics, knowledge, word knowledge, and paragraph comprehension. Other subtests feed into the job-specific line scores. Okay, I'm actually not too up to speed on that, but that's how it's configured, the ASVAB. Scores are valid for 2 years. Applicants who score 21 to 30 may qualify for the Future Soldier Prep course to raise their score. I'm not sure if that's, sometimes it's not always up to date, but yes, there's a Future Soldier Prep course. Sometimes colloquially referred to as FAT Camp, because yes, it is for to improve your academics, but it is also a program for those who are still trying to reach the physical standard. And you run into them at reception, because sometimes they're doing it at the same time as you. But yes, there are prep courses that you can do to improve both physical and academic standards. Okay, oath of enlistment, we went over that. National Guard enlistees take a version of the oath that pledges to obey the governor and defend the state constitution. So there's a little extra tidbit in there for the Guard. What to bring? Yeah, it was like it's an overnight thing. I think they pay for a hotel there, because you get there in the evening. Next morning, it's an early start, and then you do all your stuff. And then for me, I was done by early afternoon. It says bring your social security card, birth certificate, government issued ID, bring eyeglasses or contact. Yeah, so if you have like some medical stuff, bring all the documentation that I mentioned earlier. You're going to want to make sure you have all that, because everything in the Army needs to be documented. Remember that. Contracts and commitment. This is an important one to know, because you're in it for the long haul with this one. The 8-year military service obligation. Military service obligation. By law, every enlisted person incurs an 8-year total commitment, but it's not 8 years of active duty usually. It covers all service, active and reserve service combined. So there's the IRR, that's the inactive ready reserve. That's like the pool of selectees for like when you get into the draft situation. So for instance, you have the 3-year contract with the National Guard that is a 3 years of drilling commitment, and then 5 years of being in the inactive ready reserve. No like drill commitment, you're just there. So there's that. And then you can, I think with the Guard also has the 6 years, so you can do 6 years drilling and then 2 years. So there's that. Active duty, you can do like 4 and 4. So every contract is an 8-year service obligation. So that's just something to know about, right? What to bring before signing. Yeah, confirm the MOS that you picked is actually the one in the contract, because again, this is the one. Like once you sign on the line with your fingerprint, like you're in it. So you want to make sure like the ship date is correct, and read any bonus paperwork in full, including what triggers. Yes, okay, so this is a common one. So bonuses, tuition assistance, tuition benefits, anything that was like, oh, my recruiter said I can do this. Make sure it is in your contract, because you know once you ship off to basic and graduate in AIT and you're off to your unit, like that's it. You're not seeing your recruiter again. So whatever they said to get you in the door or sign up for this, make sure it's in the contract, because that is what will stick with your documentation all the way through. You know, you make it to your unit and you say, well, my recruiter said this, and they're like they have no idea what you're talking about. If it's in your contract, it's in writing, it's there, they can make sure you get squared away with whatever bonus or tuition benefit you signed up for. Recruits may consult a military legal assistance attorney before signing at no cost. Oh, how about that? There you go. The recruiter relationship, I put this in there because yes, recruiters are there to guide you through the pipeline, but they don't always like have your best interests at the front. So you just want to make sure like, you know, you're actually signing up for what you want to sign up for. A recruiter is an active duty NCO assigned to recruiting duty, not an independent salesperson. Understanding how recruiters are evaluated and what they can and cannot promise helps a prospective recruit work with one effectively. This is important because if you're signing up for the Army, chances are you don't know a whole lot about the process. This is in part why I'm trying to make this material, so you can make a well-informed decision. So who recruiters are. Recruiters are non-commissioned officers, usually staff sergeants or sergeant first class on a multi-year recruiting assignment. They are evaluated against contract quotas. So it does matter to them if you ship out to basic and graduate. Meeting quotas affects their evaluation and career. That's useful. It's just useful context, not a reason for distrust. Recruiters earn their regular military pay plus special duty pay. So they don't earn a commission per recruit per se. What a recruiter can and cannot do. A recruiter determines eligibility, explains options, and processes paperwork. They do not decide which MOS the Army offers. Yeah, that's the ASVAB score that determines that. A recruiter cannot waive a medical disqualification. Waivers are decided independently through command channels. Again, I didn't have any waivers, so I'm assuming that's the way it is. Only what is written and signed in the contract is enforceable. If a recruiter describes a bonus, job, or assignment, ask to see it in writing before proceeding. Get it in writing. Ways to verify independently: MOS description and AIT location, all things to make sure are corresponding to what you signed up for, because you will go wherever that document says. For guard and reserve enlistments, contact the assigned unit directly to ask about its drill schedule and recent deployment history. I guess you can do that. Pre-ship preparation. All right, this is a fun one. This is like, okay, especially if you're in the guard, you might have taken the oath of enlistment, signed the contract weeks or months ago. I saw battle buddies who would wait almost a year sometimes. I think I skipped over RSP, but in short, RSP, the Recruit Sustainment Program, is a unique feature of the Guard that essentially covers that time between the time that you take the oath of enlistment and the time that you ship out. You do your monthly drills, you get paid. It's not your unit, it is a separate, RSP is its own thing. And you can be in RSP, you can be drilling there for a while. I was drilling there for 6 months. Some of it was shorter, some of it was longer, it depends. So now it's your time to ship. Pre-ship preparations. Physical preparation, yes, there will be, you're doing PT, it's the Army. You don't depend on basic to get you into shape. You will get into shape, you will do a lot of conditioning. This might be controversial. Again, this is my own view, opinion. Certainly does not represent the DoD, DOW. If you're in a non-combat support MOS, from what I've seen, you're gonna be fine. It's gonna be miserable. They're gonna yell at you. They're gonna scream at you because you can't do the push-ups. But you're gonna make it. You'll be okay. Certainly, if you are in one of them, the high-speed infantry kind of adjacent areas, yes, absolutely, because the bread and butter of that is the running and rucking and doing all the PT. So certainly, it would behoove you either way to improve your physical readiness. And for this, I'm going off script here, but it's the cardiovascular and calisthenics that will get you across the finish line for Army physical training, because strength training, something that I've done for years, that does not always translate to the strength that you will need for going to basic, because it's body weight exercises, it's push-ups, it's planks, it's crunches, it's all that kind of stuff. I didn't get to touch a bench press the entire time at basic training. Luckily, I did at AIT because there was a gym there. But all that is to, there's a 2-mile run. That's part of the AFT. It was the ACFT when I took it. They took out the standing ball throw, thankfully. But yeah, there is a running component. You will be doing some running. How much? I literally can't say. That will depend entirely on where you end up. You might be doing a lot of running. For us, we did the 30-60s sprinting maybe twice. When for the entire 10 weeks, we just did not do a whole lot of running. Again, I'm a support MOS, so they're not out here trying to train us into the infantry. But I cannot say for certain if you will be doing a lot of running or not a lot of running. I think if you just look up on YouTube, most people's experiences, there's not a whole lot of running, but you should have basics cardiovascular conditioning, especially for rucking. Let me get into that, because you're going to be doing 3 ruck marches. I think there's a 4, 6, and an 8. Or is it 10-mile ruck? There's several miles of rucking. I would strongly recommend beforehand getting a weighted backpack or something and just walking a few miles, because what you will see a lot of, I guarantee, is after the first ruck march, many of your battle buddies will go to sick call and they will end up on crutches because of injuries pertaining to not being able to withstand. Now they weigh 20-30% more than the usual, and their joints and bones can't handle that, and then that causes some issues. So even something just to get your joints used to weighing a little bit more than your body weight, because rucking is a real thing. I might get into more of that. But physical preparation, you don't have to. This is another personal note for me. When running, don't concentrate on the mile time, go for time. in general. I mean, like, so like, don't worry about getting like, oh, I have to get my 9-minute mile, 8-minute mile. Just go out for a run and run at a very slow pace for like 30 minutes. The speed will follow. You'd be surprised. It seems counterintuitive because it's the whole thing with the zone 2 training. This is what conditions your cardiovascular system. If you run at a sprint and you hit that max zone, that heart rate range, you're just training your body to essentially get better at suffering through the, I can't breathe. But if you actually slow it down, run at a pace where you can still have a conversation, that is what's building your cardiovascular efficiency. I did that. I could barely run a 5K without fighting for my life. And I did this. I took a few weeks before shipping out, and I made sure to, go for time and run at a very slow pace. Didn't feel like I was doing much. Didn't really feel like I was working out because I could still talk, I could still breathe. But sure enough, several weeks of that into a few months of that really helped build that foundation to which I finished AIT with a 13-minute 2-mile. I was very proud of. Now, the conditions were perfect. It was a flat track, but it was that months of preparation that led up to that. And yeah, do some long distance rucking with a backpack just to get your joints configured for that. Administrative tasks. Okay, so yeah, we're still on pre-ship preparation. That was physical preparation. Administrative tasks. Tell your employer or school your ship date. There are federal laws that will protect your job positions. And I had this, and I never had an issue with an employer where they gave me a hard time working around my Army schedule. I will say this, something that I noticed is that they are federally required to protect and have that job open to you. They don't have to keep your schedule. So if you have a nice schedule, I had a nice day shift schedule. They don't have to keep that. They just have to keep something resembling your job. But that's just some nuance with your own employer. But that's just something that I noticed. There are federal protections, so if you do get jammed up with something there, you certainly have some recourse for that. Set up direct deposit. You'll take care of all that at reception, which we'll get into because reception is its own fun thing. Arrange a power of attorney if you need that. Okay, what to bring? This is a fun one. You might hear some conflicting opinions on this. This says the Army issues all uniforms, boots, and gear at reception. Do not pack military equipment. Bring required documents, a small amount of cash, prescription medication in their original containers, and any required eyewear. Leave behind valuables, expensive electronics, food, supplements, and anything not on the recruiter's approved list. Okay, so I have some notes on this. Certainly, bring as little as you can. Why? Well, one, you're not going to be able to have any of it during basic anyway. But more importantly, anything that you bring, you'll have to carry with you after graduation. And after graduation, you're going to get a bunch of military gear. At minimum, it's going to be 2 full duffel bags of those green Army duffel bags and a rucksack full of gear. So now, in addition to all this, you have your 2 hands full and your rucksack on your backpack, you have to bring any extra baggage, duffel bags, or suitcases that you brought. And you just have to haul that everywhere, out of graduation, through the airport, everywhere. So whatever you bring, you got to carry. Just keep that in mind. You will get so much stuff at basic training. I will say this, because on the electronics, you're not going to get to have your phone or anything with you. You'll have some time to have your phone in the neighborhood of weekly. Once a week. I wish I had brought an iPad or Apple Watch, because it is true that you won't get to touch it at all during basic, but after you graduate basic and you ship off to AIT, there is a chance, depending on what the battalion company policy that you land at, there's a good chance you will at least at some point be authorized to use those items. And so I saw battle buddies who, they had their tablets, Apple Watch, freaking PlayStation. And because at AIT, there were some times where we were authorized to use those items. They had brought them. Now, they have to carry it everywhere. So they're still on that. But I wish I would have brought some stuff, just because, I was like, basic training, I won't get to use it, but then after basic. I have a note here. Maybe I'm jumping ahead on the boots, because maybe this should be in the mail section. But the gear that you get, the boots that you get at reception are awful, because they are built for durability, not comfort. And so they feel like wearing a couple bricks. It's this hard rubber. there's no cushion. Running in them is practically impossible. But this is a good point to talk about the other footwear, running shoes. Okay. At Fort Jackson, when I went, they were kind of beta testing this program where they actually had an athletic trainer who could actually authorize you to retain running shoes that you brought there if they met a certain standard. And the standard, roughly speaking, was like they had to be better than the running shoes that they issued you. And there was like a whole like high-speed formula for like how they, measured if it was like a good shoe. But like the quick and dirty test was like they would take the shoe by both ends and bend it, and depending on how much flex it had, it would determine like, okay, will this actually support you while running? And so I had a nice pair of Nikes. I wore that. That's the only pair of shoes that I brought, the ones that I wore, and they were I was authorized to keep those. So I was really good because they were a lot better than, they're not horrible, the running shoes that they issue there, but they're also not great. So I don't know if there's any way to find out what the policy is beforehand, but if there is an opportunity for you to like retain your running shoes, go out and buy a nice high-speed pair of running shoes, and you'll have those for the duration of basic training. What to study? The Army values. Yes, there's leadership, loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, personal courage. The Soldier's Creed. You'll be saying that every day. The 3 general orders, the chain of command. Yes, you should be able to answer like, who's the battalion commander of whatever company you're in, and you should be able to know that. So that's the blue book. They will issue you a blue book. It's basically a little booklet, a little starting guide with all the information that you will need. It even stars all of the things that you need to memorize. It's all in there. The Army song, the Soldier's Creed, the general orders, everything. There's a lot of information about like finance and whatnot, history of the Army. Everything is in there. It's in the blue book, and you should get that at reception, but it's also available online. Okay, reception. This is a fun one. Often called week 0 because it does not count towards the 10 weeks of basic training. It is its own thing. So it's actually 10 weeks plus reception. Reception can be anywhere from 5 to 7 days, depending on just their schedule. It's often referred to as one of the more miserable parts of basic. Is it the most miserable part? Possibly. It's because it's several days of administrative tasks with like no sleep. And that's why it's just awful, because it's also the shock and awe factor. You just got there, you have no idea where you're going next, and you're standing all day doing random stuff without any sleep. So reception is run by a separate battalion at each BCT installation. It handles the administrative steps every soldier must complete before joining a training company. A recruit is under military authority from arrival. The pace is administrative, not the high-intensity environment of basic training. So that is something to note. Time at reception does not count towards the 10 weeks. Yep. What happens at reception? Medical, dental, screening, blood and urine tests, everything at MEPS just over again. Vision checks, immunizations, so shots, initial uniform and gear issue, haircuts, you get your ID card, your CAC, and your dog tags. Finance and direct setup, so this is where you take care of hooking or connecting your bank so you can get paid. Life insurance, health insurance, you can make those elections there. A first fitness assessment. Recruits who fail may be placed in the fitness. I don't remember doing like a fitness assessment at reception, but maybe that was just me. An amnesty period on arrival. So this is the first thing that happens once you get off of the bus from the airport, because the drill sergeants will collect the pool of trainees who gathered from the arrivals and then bus them all to the basic training installation. And the first thing that they do is get rid of all the items that you can't have, the amnesty period. So they will, I've seen a couple of these on YouTube. This is where the drill sergeants will have everyone in the formation in the classroom and then call up all the items that you can't have, and then they come and put them in the bin. When I went, it was pretty chill. The drill sergeant was just like, hey, if you have something that you can't have or not authorized to have, bring it up here, no problem. If you don't turn it in now, it's gonna be a bigger problem down the road. So I think I had some scope mouthwash that they couldn't have, but other than that, you just pack up your belongings and keep going about your day and do a bunch of other stuff. When I went, it was just like that night, it was cold, it was in January. We got just enough items so that we could like bunker down for the night. So like our PT uniforms and hygiene items and like a laundry bag. And then the rest started the next day. But that was just me. Okay, the 4 basic training installations are Fort Jackson, Fort Moore, Fort Leonard Wood, and Fort Sill. Depending on what MOS you sign up for will determine which basic training you go to. And each one will have its own reception battalion. It's important on the reception battalions because that's not like, there will be drill sergeants there, but they are only there for the few days that you're at reception. You will get a whole nother set of drill sergeants for basic training, and then a whole nother set of drill sergeants for AIT, unless you do OSA, one station unit training, which is just for infantry, military police, and some of those MOSs there. They have like, it's one shot. You don't graduate halfway through, or you have one graduation. They combine it, and it's at one place. You have the same set of drill sergeants. So another unique feature, if you do that option with one of those MOSs, you have OSA. Whereas for most, like, again, I was in an even more unique situation because what most of my battle buddies did after they graduated at Fort Jackson, they would have their AIT at another state, at another training base, but I just went down the road because AIT for human resources was at Fort Jackson, just by coincidence. So I did not get to fly out of Fort Jackson after graduation. But that was just me. So those are some notes on reception. Yeah, overall, it's like it all kind of blurs together because it's just several days of standing at parade rest or attention, waiting for your turn to knock out whatever task it is, get your shots. And at Fort Jackson, it was actually pretty nice because, like, they're if you have a 2 p.m., that's your hit time for doing vision, but like you got done with your other appointment a few hours early, sometimes they would send you back to the barracks to conduct bay maintenance, like clean up your belongings and stuff. But sometimes you could like sneak in a quick nap in there, so that was kind of fun. But other than that, like it's I'm pretty sure I hallucinated in the for the hearing test, just because like it's so quiet. It's the perfect place. You wish you could take a nap. But other than that, you just got to get through it. If you can get through that, you can get through most of basic training. They did. There was one day where we could have our phones. It was not even a full week. It was like 5 days or so, but like it felt like it had been so long, just because I'm addicted to my phone. But we got some time to have our phones at reception. You wait until the day that they're ready to ship you out. That's why they're chucking you through everything. And like everyone's in a hurry. This is probably a good time to mention the boots. Yes, they're awful. They did provide us with an opportunity where they were like, hey, if you get your boots, you wear them for a day. If they are seriously causing like serious blisters, you can have an opportunity to go exchange them, right? First of all, it's important to remember Army boot sizes don't correlate to like the traditional foot size. I think it's just -2. So like I'm usually a 10.5. My Army boot size was 8.5. They gave me 8s the first time. Way too small. I was getting blisters. So I signed up to be one of those trainees that was like, hey, can I go exchange my boots? The civilian worker there, when I told them, I was like, hey, the boots are too small. They gave me 9s, which were now too big. And I had to stand my ground a bit because like I was like, I'm gonna have these the entire basic training. So I was like, no, I know they have half sizes. Can I just get some 8.5s? But of course, they have hundreds of trainees they're just trying to get through. So of course they're very well choreographed with how they do it. You stand here, you do the boot thing, and then you go to the next line. They do not have time to like have a one-on-one to be like, okay, what do you need? How can I help you? That's not it. Like it is a well choreographed dance that you just get in, get out, get your boots, and that's how it is with all the stations because they're just there to get literally hundreds of trainees through. So you gotta be prepared for that. Definitely like be aware of your surroundings there. Oh my goodness, because they'll just yell at you like, pay attention, wake up, because everyone's literally falling asleep and they're trying to like do the get you through the shots, get you through sizing. So it's very important that you pay attention through that, but also get the boots that you want because you're gonna have them for 10 weeks. More on that later. You might have an opportunity to get boots shipped to you, but just in case that's not an option, do your best to get the boot size that you can at reception. All right, and we are back. Now kind of the moment that I think everyone has been waiting for, actual basic training. So we're through the pipeline, we're through reception, you get to basic training. I will say, when we first shipped out of reception and got to basic training, what you'll see on YouTube is they have the first 100 yards. Actually, and I've even seen like word on the street, rumor has it they might be, you know, bringing back the shark attack, question mark, I don't know. But it was their first 100 yards when I went through, and that was where they have like all the equipment, so like MRE boxes, ammo boxes, water jugs, the stretcher, and you have to like, as a team, move it up and run with it somewhere and then do something. On YouTube, it's like a whole like activity where you have to like reassemble it in a certain way. That was not the case when I went through. It was basically just pick it up, run, and they had all like the, you know, simulated fire, so it was noisy. I thought it was kind of fun, but that was it. It only lasted like 5 minutes or though. I don't think they had time to do the whole activity. But we got there and then we met with the senior drill sergeants and they did like a little announcement thing, kind of be like, oh, welcome to basic training, and laid out some expectations and such. And then it was pretty straightforward. We kind of bunked down for the night. They showed us the cots, you know, the whole bed making. But we'll get into the actual kind of outline and overview. So there's the phases. There's 3 phases: red, white, and blue phase. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit tripped up on this because when I went through, our company didn't even really do the phases. I think we just had such a dirtbag company. We were like in the same phase, like it was a yellow phase or something. That's not even on here, but we were in the same phase for a while. And so like there are phases, I will go over them. We just didn't do them very well. But red phase, weeks 1 through 3, according to the notes. It focuses on discipline, Army customs, physical training, Army values, first field exercise. So it looks like, yeah, the phases like correlate to like each field exercise because those build on each other. First field exercise is the hammer. After red is white. Marksmanship on the M4, grenades, gas chamber, the second field exercise, the Anvil. Then there's blue phase. Tactics, the capstone exercise, it's the forge, final testing, and graduation. Again, I would take that with some salt. It's kind of like a rough guideline. Whether, you know, they'll have the schedule, but I don't know if the phases always correlate to that. But that was just my own experience. Who knows how it could be depending on where you end up. Drill sergeants are the primary trainers throughout. Training is gender integrated, as opposed to reception. They separated the males and females, but for actual basic training, it is integrated. Men and women train in the same companies. Major graduation requirements include, but are not limited to, qualifying on the M4 rifle, passing the AFT, the fitness test, completing all three field exercises, and demonstrating required soldier tasks. So those are graduation requirements. Marksmanship. I actually have a whole section just on this. There will be plenty of time in the classroom. They take it real slow to bring you up to speed on the M4 rifle, what you have to do for the group and zeroing, for the qual course, and they outline it a ton. There's even like an electronic version with like a simulated fire that you'll do. But going just on the M4 and the range. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to throw a lot of information on here. Again, they will go over it so much, but at least now you have it, so it's not the first time you hear it when at basic. You kind of have some general information. So it is the M4 carbine, however everyone says it. The M4 is the standard individual weapon issued to most soldiers at BCT. Is it a, you'll have to know this because this is like quiz questions. It is a gas-operated, magazine-fed, shoulder-fired carbine. It is a shorter, lighter version of the older M16 and shares roughly 85% of its parts. It fires, it's the 5.56 45 millimeter NATO cartridge from a 30-round detachable magazine, collapsible stock that adjusts to the soldier's body and gear, a flat top rail that accepts optics, though BCT is only iron sights. You won't see optics or any of that until you get to your unit. Iron sights. So those are the specifications of it. If you want to know, it's approximately 7.5 pounds. That's loaded with a sling and one magazine. It's approximately 33 inches. Barrel length is 14.5 inches. 30 round magazine capacity. Effective range is approximately 500 meters. It has safe, semi, full auto. You will never touch full auto at basic training. Weapons handling and maintenance. So before firing any rounds, you got to learn how to disassemble, clean, reassemble, do the functions check, and this is taught and reinforced a lot, which you do so much that it just becomes second nature. You take it apart a lot because you have to clean it after any day at the range, and you just kind of get used to it. There's a lot of small parts, so you got to be, cognizant not to lose anything, because you're going to get messed up if you lose some of the smaller parts. There's a lot through the procedures for how to clear jams. I had a few malfunctions, and they teach you how to go through it. Basically, it's along the lines of, tap, charge it, and that's how you kind of go through. But there's more nuance to that, but that's the general. Basically, there's a lot of moving parts, and these are like old weapons, so a lot of things can go wrong as far as like if the magazine is not seated properly, and it doesn't eject the round, or it doesn't, failure to fire, failure to feed, all that kind of stuff. Most things can be solved just by pulling the charging handle and ejecting that round and starting over. But they will go over that. I'm getting ahead. There's the safety rules, the 4 cardinal safety rules that they will go over so much, and it's important not to like sleep on these, because they seem fairly rudimentary and straightforward, but they are important, because following these will ensure that like there's no incidences or anything compromising safety. Treat every weapon as if it's loaded, never point it at anything you do not intend to destroy. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger until ready to fire, and know your target and what is behind it. All very important things. Just on the journal note that I had is we cleaned weapons a lot, and small parts like the firing pin, you have to like track those carefully. Usually most trainees just put it in their PC as to kind of like keep everything together. But cleaning weapons is like what they do when they don't really have anything else planned for the day. They just load everyone in the classroom, and they're like, all right, we're cleaning weapons all day. All right, so first thing is grouping and zeroing. The first live fire step is grouping and zeroing at 25 meters. Grouping proves that the soldier can hold the weapon consistently. Zeroing adjusts the sights so the point of aim matches the point of impact for that individual. A correct 25-meter zero translates to 300 meters because of the trajectory of the 5.56 round. This is much easier to explain with a whiteboard. I might see if I can find like some AI slop chart that shows the arc. It's really not that complicated. I think many got kind of jammed up with this as far as like, you have to adjust the point of aim, point of impact for some of the 150, 200 targets, because essentially the way that the nerd squad over at the M4 factory figured things out was that, by tilting the bore up a bit, whatever you point of aim, point of impact at 25 meters, because the arc, it will land at 300 meters. So essentially point of aim, point of impact is the same at 25 meters. Then the bullet will go through the apex of its arc and then return to that same point of aim, point of impact spot at 300 meters. Again, with a whiteboard or a chart, it's much easier to understand. The summary of it all is, for the closer targets, the 25, so those are gonna be like your left and right targets, point of aim, point of impact. Aim where you want the round to hit. For the medium ones, like 150, you want to aim below where you want the round to hit because it's on its arc. And then for the 300-meter ones, point of aim, point of impact is the same. Again, this is assuming that you have good grouping, because otherwise you're just sending it anywhere, and it doesn't really matter. But that's the formula of it all, and they'll go kind of through. There are literal formulas to it, the minute of angle and inches per 100 meters and all that. But that's more nuance that you'll see in the classroom. The qualification course. The qualification is a graduation requirement. The current course, it's 40 pop-up targets that range from 50 to 300 meters, and then they pop up here and there and in different orders. The shooter gets 4 magazines of 10 rounds each, so 40 rounds total, and engages from a sequence of positions. Changing magazines and positions is part of the course. So you got the 5 firing positions in the following order. You have your standing unsupported. Then you fire off 1 round and immediately drop to prone unsupported, then prone supported, then kneeling supported, then standing supported, and then that's where you have your plywood thing that ticket for the supported. So that's the qualification course. It's 5 minutes or something like that. But yeah, you get various targets. I will say this isn't in the notes, but the course configuration, the order to which the targets pop up, seemingly random, but it is the same. It was the same 10 years ago. It is the same as when I went through basic. It is the same as when you will need to qualify again when you get to your unit. You can look it up right now on YouTube. It is the same. You can memorize the order. So the scoring is 23 to 29, that's, well, 23 to pass, but 23 to 29, that's marksman. 30 to 35, that's sharpshooter. And then 36 to 40, that's expert. Fewer than 23 does not qualify, and you'll have to go through again. I will say this, I won't go too into detail on this because I don't want to get jammed up or whatever. And this might have been just unique to my company, my battalion. But, you know, I was worried the first time. I don't think I had a qualifying score the first time that I went through. And honestly, neither did like half the company, right? And so I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to graduate. I'm going to get recycled because I can't figure out how to get 23 hits, which, by the way, is not much more than 50%. But you get some reps in, and sure enough, I think many improved. I was certainly doing fine in the mid-20s after a couple days. But for those that still could not get a qualifying score, I'll just say this: they made sure that like they got them through. They might have had to tweak a couple things, but they like. Don't get nervous about it. They will fight. You're gonna get yelled and screamed at so much, but you won't get recycled. My experience. They might just kick you to the curb and you might get recycled. But no, in my experience, I was surprised the lengths that they went through to make sure that everyone qualified on the M4. So that's marksmanship. The gas chamber, CBurn. This is like the CS gas where you go into the gas chamber with the mask and then remove the mask, and then you gotta kind of briefly build some confidence in the equipment and, you know, experience the effects. That's a fun one. Just the daily rhythm. A typical training day runs from like the pre-dawn time of day, wake up, through morning physical training, daytime training blocks, meals go pretty quickly. You got the and the evening of bait maintenance, personal time, then lights out. There's a schedule for the training day that's in the blue book. It's a rough outline. It's like kind of sort of maybe how it goes, but like it changes. Like every day was a new day when I went through. Different wake up time, different, more or less different lights out time. Fire guard, I'll see if I can get into that later. But yeah, there's a tempo to the day, but it was for me, it was kind of a different day each day. I don't know if that's how it is everywhere. Maybe some other basic trainings follow that blue book schedule a lot more. But all right, the 3 field training exercises. Basic training includes so the hammer, Anvil, and the forge. Each takes recruits into the field to apply what they have learned. The forge is the capstone and is a graduation requirement. The name, following the black smithing theme of forging soldiers. So the first one is the hammer. It's roughly 1 day, 1 night. Recruits apply camouflage, build fighting positions, navigate basic terrain, and pull security on shifts. No live fire. I will say this, just from talking with other battle buddies, like we did foxholes. Others did tents. That, I guess, just depends where you end up. But we did foxholes, so we literally just spent the day with the E-tool, digging a foxhole, and improving our fighting position. And that was it. Like that was literally the whole point of the exercise, was dig the foxhole, improve your fighting position, and then that was it. The Anvil kind of builds on top of that. It's dig the foxholes, improve fighting positions, and then like do some like other exercises like squad movements, casualty care, we didn't do any night operations, but I guess that was in there. And then they might incorporate some things with the blank rounds. So for the squad movements that you do, you might get the opportunity to fire some blank rounds. Then the forge. The forge is the capstone event, roughly 96 hours of continuous field operations across several days and nights, graduation requirement. The exercise involves miles of cumulative ruck marching and very little sleep. It ends with a long ruck march back to the company area. Yes, this is true. Essentially, it's just what you've done before for longer and more of it. And then I think that's also when we did the night infiltration course, but I didn't see that in the notes, but that's also in there. All 3 exercises are conducted away from the barracks. Soldiers sleep in or beside fighting positions, eat MREs, and carry their own water. I don't know why that's in there. You always have a Camelback with you. You'll get so messed up if you're caught without your Camelback. Rucksack loads typically run from 35 to 55 pounds, depending on the mission. Yeah, they'll give you a whole packing list about what to pack, and you better make sure you have that, because they will do layouts where they have you dump all your gear, call out the items, and you better have it. Otherwise, you're gonna get messed up, and all your battle buddies are gonna get messed up. That's just kind of the overall theme. But yeah, make sure you have everything, because the layout yeah, you don't want to get messed up in the layout or have anything you're not supposed to have. Because with the MREs and they have candy and stuff, don't get caught with any Skittles or anything. That's happens so much. It's so fun. We'll go briefly into MREs. That's meals ready to eat. A self-contained field meal with a waterproof pouch. Each provides roughly 1,200 to 1,300 calories. The field standard is 3 per day. So yeah, we were chowing down a lot of calories. There is a heater in them. We were not authorized to use them, so there's that. And then there's a bunch of menus. I think there's 24 listed here. Chili with beans, beef stew, chili and mac, cheese tortellini, chicken burrito, all sorts of the stuff. I liked number 19, the beef patty, because it had peanut M&Ms. And we were authorized to eat the candy. Others, just from talking like with other battle buddies, they were like, yeah, we couldn't have the candy. So yeah, I was out here eating my peanut M&Ms. Usually not a whole lot of time to eat. MREs, mostly for the field, although sometimes if we couldn't make it to the DFAC for whatever reason, we would just chow down and have MREs in the classroom. But most of the time we got to go to the dining facility. So that's the field. Those are MREs. There's more to it, but honestly, and then the MREs, they're all right, mostly because whenever you have them, you're always just so hungry. And so like on a normal day, like they're not that good. It's canned food, right? It's pretty much the best way to think about it. It's preserved, room temperature food in a pouch. Not that good. But when you're really hungry, it's the best thing ever. So MREs in the field, sometimes you just load them up in your rucksack and that would be it. There's more stuff to that, but that's the general, sleeping outside is a whole thing because you have to stay up all night. You don't get any sleep practically because you have to that's when you get the least amount of sleep. You're doing like 2-hour shifts, so like you'll switch out with your battle buddy so that they can sleep for 2 hours, and then you'll pull security for 2 hours, and then you kind of switch out that. It was not a fun time, but you just got to get through it because it is a graduation requirement. So those are the field training exercises. Land navigation, land nav. This is another big one that will come up a lot in basic training, just like the M4 qual, just like all the medical things. You'll be quizzed on this. You'll spend a lot of time in the classroom on it. The actual practical exercise is pretty straightforward as far as versus the stuff you'll be learning to the actual stuff that you will be learning or doing in the practical exercise. This is where you learn how to read the maps. They'll go over how to identify all the terrain features. When you actually do it on the land nav course, you pretty much just have to plot some grid coordinates so you can find the coordinates on the map, find out where they are on the land nav course, go to those points, be like, yep, I found them, that's it, and then that is the extent of land nav at basic training. Oddly enough, we didn't actually do a ton of land nav in basic training. I did more of it at AIT, but there's so much classroom time. If you pay attention, you'll be fine. I will give an overview of kind of the things that they will be looking out for and things that you'll need to know. The 8-digit coordinate is what's used most. A 4-digit coordinate will get you accurate down to 1,000 meters. So with the grid coordinates, it's like Battleship, right? It's like D4, and then you find where they intersect. Similarly, there's some numbers on the map. You find out where they intersect, and then that gets you your 1,000-meter square. And then each additional digit gets you more accurate. So like 6 digits would be down to 100 meters, 8 digits down to 10 meters, which is pretty accurate. If you can find a point down to 10 meters, it's like it's in the area. 8 digits is mostly what the coordinates you will be getting, right? So just some basic things. You got contour lines that's kind of like shows the elevation. So like if they're closer together, that's like steep, and then if they're further apart, it's not as steep. You got the major terrain features. These are big ones. These are things that a drill sergeant might just come up and like test you on. There's like a way to remember it, the Hidden Valley Ranch salad dressing, because you have hill, valley, ridge, saddle, depression. So like real quick, like a hill, that's just like a hill. Valley, it's like a stretched out groove in the land, usually with a stream running through it. A ridge is a line of high ground with various height along its crest. Saddle, a dip or a low point along the crest of a ridge. Depression, it's like a sinkhole. It's a low point or a hole in the ground. Then you have 3 minor terrain features. You have a draw, spur, cliff. These are a little more nuanced. You really got to pay attention to what these are. Draw, a less developed stream course than a valley with essentially no level ground and little room to maneuver. A spur, a short sloping line of high ground jutting out from the side of a ridge, often formed by 2 parallel draws cutting down a ridge. Then a cliff, it's a cliff. I think most can visualize what a cliff is. Then there's the 2 supplementaries of the man-made terrain features, cut and fill. cut, a man-made feature where the ground has been dug away to level a route for a road or railroad, and then fill, a man-made feature where the earth has been piled up to raise a route for a road or railroad. Then there's azimuth. Azimuth is pretty much just like that way, and then it's your heading. And then you can do all sorts of things like back azimuth. Back azimuth will be important for like if you get lost, you take your azimuth minus 180, and then that you kind of can backtrack. You can use the protractor and compass will be the tools that you have. And then there's the pace count. A pace count, that's just how many steps it takes you, the individual, to go 100 meters, because that's how you navigate. You count your steps and be like, okay, we've gone 100 meters. Finding your own position. This is more ahead. This is more than you'll be doing in the actual land nav course. Again, you'll get several 8-digit grid coordinates. You have to find those on the map. Once you find them on the map, you have to use your azimuth, your protractor, and your pace count to go find them on the land nav course. And then they're usually marked by something like orange, like a number or something. Something that'd be like, okay, yes, this is the land nav point. So that's the overview of it. Again, when we were supposed to be doing it during the field training exercises, that's your opportunity to do the land navigation. I think for whatever scheduling reason, they just kind of skipped over that a little bit. So AIT is where I did most of my land nav. But again, if you pay attention to the classroom portion of it and you get good at plotting grid coordinates, that will be most of what you're doing. And all the additional stuff is just stuff to know because you will probably be quizzed on it. So that's land navigation. All right, next is the Army Fitness Test, the AFT, formerly the ACFT, and then there was even another version before that, so it changes every now and then. But right now it's the AFT, pretty much the ACFT, but they took away the standing power throw where you take the medicine ball and chuck it over your head. It was a very technical movement. I'm glad they took it out. So now it's the maximum score is 500 points instead of 600 points because they took out that one event. So right now the events are 3 repetition maximum deadlift, hand release push-up, sprint drag carry, the plank, and the 2-mile run. 3 max deadlift, it's pretty simple, just a deadlift. It's with a trap bar, so it's not like with a barbell. Hand release push-up is a bit of a variation of a push-up, so instead of a push-up, at the bottom, you put your arms out like an airplane all the way out, and then you bring them back in, and then you do the push-up, and then that's one. I hear different opinions on whether they're better than regular push-ups. I like the hand release push-ups. Some like, getting into that tempo, but they're just a variation of the push-up. The sprint drag carry, it's like a shuttle run. It's a 250-meter shuttle run over a 25-meter lane completed in 5 continuous 50-meter phases. Phase 1 is the sprint. Then you drag a 90-pound sled. Then you do a lateral shuffle. I don't know why it's not called the sprint drag shuffle carry, but there's a shuffle in there. And then you carry the 2 kettlebells. And those are two 40-pound kettlebells, and then you sprint back, and then that's the sprint drag carry. The plank is a traditional plank on the forearms. I think it's what it is. It's like you can't be touching. So like I think you can have your hands flat or like in a fist. You just can't be touching, and then your feet can't be wider than the grader's boot. So you have to have your feet kind of together. And then there's the 2-mile run. It's a run. You can walk, you can do it however you want, but the clock's running, so however you need to get 2 miles done, 2-mile run. Scoring standards, a minimum of 300 points with at least 60 in each event. You can look up the chart and it varies for age and gender, so males and females have different scoring, so you have to find what your specific scoring is for your bracket. And basic training, it's a baseline. So yeah, when I did it, they did an initial assessment, and they'll give you opportunities to practice before taking the actual fitness test. So doing some of the events, they might break it up because they might do the deadlifts on one day because that's a whole assembly thing. That's also good to know. Sometimes we got ripped out of our bunks at 3 in the morning to go set up an ACFT for someone else because you have to go get the trap bars, the weights, you have to set it all up so that someone can take the fitness test. So but they will give you an opportunity to practice it. I think we did a 1-mile run to that was their way of assessing, okay, who's where with their physical conditioning. They didn't just throw us right into the physical fitness test. They gave us opportunities to practice and kind of see who's where. Soldiers on a documented medical profile may substitute an alternate aerobic event such as stationary. I'll have to double check that. I don't know about that one, but yeah. As far as like if you failing one event fails the whole test. Now, it's not like you're one and done, you'll get recycled. I think you usually have an opportunity to redo it, but it is important to know that if you fail one event, you fail the whole thing. So there's that. That's the fitness, the AFT as it is now. All right, next is sharp and reporting. All right, I included this not because it's not just like a compliance exercise. You will get a sharp brief every time you go to a new battalion, so reception, basic, and then AIT. I think it's important to know because it is a fairly well engineered system that is not perfect but has made significant improvement over its legacy existing system for reporting sexual harassment and sexual assault. The background and history of it is that for prevention, this was SHARP, Sexual Harassment, Assault, Response, and Prevention, fully implemented in 2012, at merging the Army's earlier sexual assault and sexual harassment prevention program into one. It exists because of the Army's previous approach, handling incidents informally through the chain of command, so that's how it used to go down, it failed to protect victims or hold offenders accountable. So there were some issues with it. The restricted reporting option was established in July 2005 directly in response to a known failure. Victims who did not want an investigation were receiving no care at all because every disclosure to any covered person automatically triggered command notification and law enforcement. Restricted reporting separated care from command. A victim could get medical and psychological support without initiating an investigation they were not ready for. Okay. There were some incidences, I think back in 1996 with some drill sergeants that were kind of cited as the catalyst for this, right? 2021 made sexual harassment became a specific criminal offense under the UCMJ. And that's important because, remember, sexual harassment, sexual assault. Sexual harassment can be glances, they can be comments, right? So it's not always the act of sexual assault. Sexual harassment, that's why the perception is reality is something that they'll go over. So they don't mess around with that kind of stuff. There was some restructure in 2024, kind of merging things, and like for instance, under the old structure, a victim's the SARC, that's the Sexual Assault Response Coordinate, I think that's it. Under the old structure, a victim's SARC was part of their brigade, which created some pressure, either actual or perceived, to handle cases within command. Under the new installation-based model, a victim accesses support through the nearest installation, independent of their own unit, with sharp professionals reporting to the lead SARC, not to a commander. You'll see this is kind of a theme. It's separating it out of the chain of command, because that's where many of the issues were. Okay, so who administers SHARP? SARC, yes, Sexual Assault Response Coordinator, the program manager and primary point of contact for any victim seeking help, available around the clock. Under the new structure, SARCs are attached to the installations, not units. Then there's the VA, the victims advocates. They work under the SARC to directly support victims, explaining options, accompanying them to appointments, and providing continuity through medical, legal, and the administrative processes. DoD Safe Helpline, 877-995-5247, available 24/7 worldwide. Okay, so the two reporting channels. This is where like all the real engineering is happening. There's restricted and unrestricted. Restricted reporting. A restricted report allows the victim to confidentially disclose a sexual assault and receive care without notifying command or triggering law enforcement. This is the important part. Under a restricted report, the victim receives medical treatment for a forensic exam, SARC and VA support, and access to legal advocacy, all without command notification or investigation. There's an important nuance with some updated current policy. This is important. A restricted report will not trigger an investigation unless the victim discloses it to a mandated reporter, which includes commanders and law enforcement. If that disclosure happens inadvertently, the report stays restricted, but an independent investigation is then initiated. The key protection is that the investigation is independent. It's not run through the unit commander. Okay. A restricted report can be converted to an unrestricted report at any time, but you can't do the reverse. Communications with a chaplain are separately privileged, confidential, governed through Military Rule of Evidence 503, distinct from the SHARP system. Yeah, so you can speak to a chaplain. Okay, then there's unrestricted reporting. This is kind of like the legacy system. An unrestricted report triggers an official investigation, notifies the command. It can be made to a SARC, so that's the Sexual Response Coordinator, VA, CID. CID is like the Army Criminal Investigation Division, a healthcare provider, or the chain of command. Under an unrestricted report, the victim may request a military protective order restricting the alleged offender's contact, an expedited transfer to a different unit or installation, and representation through the Special Victims Counsel Program, a military attorney who represents the victim, separate from any prosecutor. Victims are protected from disciplinary action for minor collateral misconduct, such as underage drinking, revealed in connection with reporting an assault. Okay, so that's that. You'll get a SHARP brief everywhere you go. It's important to pay attention to that. I think it's worth mentioning because if you don't know about it, like if you don't know about the options available, you won't know what to do if you find yourself in this situation, or to help out a battle buddy who doesn't know the system. So that's the overview on SHARP. There's great options and resources available out there, and you will get a SHARP brief everywhere you go, so it's important to pay attention there. All right, next section, I have this titled as when things don't go to plan. So things like recycling, medical holds, injuries. Recycling occurs when something basically prohibits a trainee from continuing training and they get recycled, kind of a restart to a previous point in training, right? Recycling means a recruit is moved back to an earlier point in the cycle, repeating training they did not pass. It's okay. It says here, it is targeted. It's not a restart from week one. A recruit who fails marksmanship qualification in week 5 might be recycled to repeat marksmanship week, not the entire program. More on that later because I have some personal notes on that. Common reasons for recycling: failing to qualify on the rifle, failing to get the fitness test, failing to complete the yeah, so basically if you don't meet any of the competencies, you risk getting recycled. It is a decision made, it is the decision to recycle rather than separate. Okay, yeah. Separation is also a thing. That's like you're out of the Army. But that decision is made by the chain of command, the drill sergeants, first sergeant, and company commander based on whether the recruit is likely to succeed with more time. A recycled recruit typically joins a different training company at the point where they left off with new cadre and a later graduation date. So it moves that clock. I will say this, because this says, yes, in the ideal configuration, let's say you make it to week 5, you don't qual. Ideally, you'd want to just kind of do a sidestep over to catch up with the next basic training that's coming up in the schedule, and then you just tag on with them and you keep on going at their later graduation date. That's, if you can finesse that, that's how you would want it to go. But just talking with battle buddies, because you will probably see if you get there, there'll be some holdovers, some trainees who got recycled that are now joining your company. I was speaking to one that I think he had some sort of medical thing, and he got recycled, and he was saying he was a holdover, basically where you're in non-training status, you're not like doing all the stuff, you just kind of tag along with everyone, and then you go back about your day at the end. But it's so much paperwork to get anything done in the Army, especially in basic training here. That's why they say, you might hear like from a recruiter saying the quickest way to get out of basic is to graduate, because if you try to do anything like with separation or all that, it just takes so long because you have all sorts of approval authorities and paperwork that has to, it's a government organization, it's the DMV. Remember that? So they're not notorious for expediting anything. What happened with this trainee that I was talking to essentially was in limbo for several months. You know, because he was promised that, oh yeah, you just wait for so-and-so's basic training with whatever company and then join in at their level where you got recycled at. And if that doesn't happen, you know, you might get lost in the sauce until someone remembers like, oh yeah, we got to like connect this trainee with this company. So again, ideally, okay, you get recycled at week 5, you just tag on with someone else. it's not always that simple just because of the nightmare of paperwork that has to happen. So that's usually for medical reasons or sometimes not being able to meet competencies. Injuries. The most common injuries are overuse and impact injuries from running, rucking, and repetitive training. Stress fractures, those are common, especially with the rucks. Shin splints, sprained ankles, knee pain, and soft tissue strains. Minor injuries are often managed with a medical profile, which is a restriction from a specific activity, saying like, okay, you can't do this or whatever. When a recruit continues with training events that do not aggravate, if it doesn't aggravate the injury, they're just like, okay, you're on the profile. Keep going. A profile is not the same as being pulled away from training. Many recruits train through minor profiles. This is true. Many trainees will have profiles, sometimes for the most peculiar things. I think you can get a profile for double rations. Like if you're too small, you're like, here's a medical document saying feed this trainee more. A recruit who concealed a pre-existing condition at MEPS and is later found out can be processed for separation. Yeah, so be honest at MEPS, because it'll get you jammed up later. And they'll give you all sorts of opportunities at reception to be like, if there's nothing you haven't disclosed yet, now is your chance, or you're gonna get messed up legally. Entry-level separation. Okay, so separation is a thing. I guess that you can get you haven't really done anything, so it's not an honorable or dishonorable discharge. You're essentially just like separated. But again, I don't know this verified, but from everything that I've seen, this seems like it would take so long to do. You probably could have gone through basic 3 or 4 times by the time the paperwork goes up, because I'm guessing like the president themselves would have to sign off on this, just because of how high up you need an approval authority to get something like this. So by the time that happens, you could have just gone through basic. What I heard from the recruiters was, if you get injured, do your best to stay there, get healed, because you're getting paid the whole time. It's miserable because you're not making any progress with your training schedule and you just want to go home, but you're getting paid, so that's cool. Heal up, get through basic, graduate, because anytime you try to do one of these fancy maneuvers here, it would just take so long to get those approval authorities. So that's kind of what happens if things don't go to plan. I wouldn't be worried too much about not meeting a competency. You might get screamed and yelled at a bit more if you don't qual the first time, or if you don't do the fitness test. They'll work with you. They will do what they can to get you through. But here's kind of some of the things that might happen if things don't always go to plan.